forms. Now, very quickly, I just want to mention the event that was taking place in Exeter over the weekend. People gathering in Exeter to talk to the general public about things like central bank digital currencies, about Agenda 2030, the Green New Deal, World Economic Forum, and so on. We've got a little bit of video here of just a couple of people that were involved in that, just explaining why they had chosen to take part in this event.
The main reason why we're here is mainly because of censorship being deplatformed on Facebook and Instagram. A while back, we'd normally be able just to put up a post and all of our friends and everyone will be able to see that. But because of that censorship, we are now here so we can bring that information to the public. You know, our big concern is in regards to mainstream media, which they are projecting one side of the story and hiding another side of the story, saying things in fluffy climate change language, but it's in, disguise of a very corrupt plan that they're looking to introduce. And we're just here to give that information to people, not tell them what to think, just to give them information so they can make the decision for themselves.
So as you can see on my hat, we're Time to Wake Up Devon, and this was pulled together off the back of the Devon Climate Emergency Plan. So back in December, I had a phone call saying, have you seen the plan? And I said, no, I haven't. I took a look at it and I thought, I really don't like this plan. There's some really nasty things. Some of it looks very fluffy to the public, but there's some really draconian things in there. So there was a meeting the following night about it in our council. So I decided to assemble a team together and we hit the council. And then after the meeting, we decided to pull everybody in and create a team where we had people that were going to fight the council, people that were researching. We put a really good leaflet together and we went out and leafleted. We went to another meeting, which was a Devon Climate Emergency meeting, and we kicked up quite a storm. And they invited us back for another meeting on January the 31st. And we assembled a team of people called 7 Concerned Citizens, and you can find that online. And that talks about what they spoke about in the meeting. We're hoping to hear back from them, and if we don't, we will be going back to them and attending the meeting and giving them some more sort of grief, because we're not going to stop.
So I think that's great.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
David, you got any thoughts on that briefly?
Well, I'm just wondering how many councils have a similar action plan. I suspect all of them. So I would encourage viewers to have a look at their own local authority and see what they're up to in this area.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, David, let's move on to Fornethy.
Yes, so anyone who hasn't seen the Fornethy conference, please see that's on our website. It explains the background to this. Basically, we've got tens of thousands of little Glaswegian girls went through a very abusive institution over a period of 30 years. This is, we're now digging further, looking for information, and we've made some progress. So we put down a Freedom of Information request referred to the Tom Shaw report, Historic Abuse Systemic Review, which said, quote, the law specified in varying degrees of detail what should be monitored and inspected in residential schools and children's homes to ensure the children's welfare and safety. Visits by various people, professional and lay, and records were the main approaches for monitoring and inspection mentioned in the legislation, and some visits were to take place at specified intervals. With that in mind, we asked the following question of Glasgow City Council. Therefore, if you do not hold records for these inspections and monitoring visits at Fornethy required by law over its 30 years of operation as a residential school, then please state whether it is the case that you never held them because they never existed, or that you do not hold them because they have been destroyed. If they have been destroyed, please provide the documentation showing when and by whom this was authorised and why. The response was amazing. Glasgow City Council came back and said, we are unable to comply with your request under the Act. Fornethy House was not registered as a statutory residential school. Our understanding is that it operated as a respite home for children to take holidays or breaks. This means that at that time, it would not have been subject to inspection. So we're talking somewhere between 20 and, we don't have a precise number, somewhere between 20 and 50,000 children over a period of 30 years went through an abusive institution with no inspection at all in 30 years. This seems surprising. So we've got a few questions that come from this. We're wondering, how was it that a residential establishment for young girls run by the state could go without any regime of inspection for 30 years? We were also wondering whether all such residential convalescent homes, because Glasgow Corporation had many of them, were left uninspected, or was Fornethy unique? We're wondering, why does Glasgow City Council hold the view that Fornethy House is exempt from inspection when the reports from its legal predecessor, Corporation of Glasgow, placed Fornethy in a category, residential schools, that did require regular and varied forms of inspection? We're asking, even if Fornethy House was indeed a respite and holiday facility, and we can find no evidence that it was ever regarded as such, why would this exempt it from inspection? Furthermore, we're asking, is it credible that the Corporation of Glasgow and Strathclyde Regional Council never, during a combined period of 30 years, sought to establish whether the place they were sending thousands of girls was actually safe? And finally, we're wondering, should Glasgow City Council's position that Fornethy was exempt from inspection due to its use prove to be incorrect? Is there something else to be uncovered here? Is this an intentional act or a perverse omission? So you can see we have many more questions. We will be reporting back on that when we have more answers.
Okay, and very, very briefly, I just want to mention this. This is from Cornwall Council and their campaign, #123 or more. This is all about LGBTQ plus adoption and fostering week. But in fact, it's not just about that. It's about, it should not just be about 1 week, but every week is how they're describing it. So I want to say thank you to the person who sent this through to us. This is part of their comment. This is Gillian. According to the Foster Talk page on Facebook, latest figures show that England already 1 in 6 adoptions last year were to same-gender couples. In Scotland, it was 1 in 11, but in Wales are really stepping up, and it's 1 in 4. I note their use of the word gender rather than sex, so same gender, not same sex. They add, current government statistics prove the growing need for more LGBTQ plus people to consider adoption or fostering. And Gillian is asking why. And David, I'm just going to very briefly make a suggestion as to why. Here's a quote from Bertrand Russell. The social psychologist of the future will have a number of classes of school children on whom they will try different methods of producing an unshakable conviction that snow is black. Various results will soon be arrived at. First, that the influence of the home is obstructive. Second, that not much can be done unless indoctrination begins before the age of 10. And I'm just going to ask the question, is this about actually creating a generation of LGBTQ plus young people? Is that why there would be so much of an effort to place foster children with LGBTQ plus families? Well, that's the first question.
It's an excellent question. I mean, there is many concerns over this. The most violent and unstable personal relationships tend to be in lesbian relationships. There is considerable evidence to show that this is the case, and of course that would be ignored. We've seen several very tragic examples in Scotland and elsewhere of these things going very badly wrong. There seems to be a disregard for safeguarding because it goes contrary to the political agenda. Have we not seen that before, or is that not the excuse as to what happened in Rotherham and elsewhere? Surely we can learn that what comes first is the welfare, safety, and best interests of the children. And we should be looking at it in that way, not as some form of social experiment.
Yeah, David, I'll just add there, if I may. I noticed that the promotional image there was of a blonde-haired, blue-eyed little girl. And many years ago, I had some very interesting information given to me by a couple who had tried to adopt, and in that process they'd had a particular person with them with a book with photographs of children, and they were fascinated that a very, very high percentage of the children were indeed blonde-haired, blue-eyed children. And this meant that they raised questions about how there could be a disproportionate number of these types of children in the adoption list. The answers they received were less than satisfactory, but it made that potential mum and dad very, very uncomfortable at what they'd got into, essentially.
What, in the sense that these children were the most sellable?
That's exactly right. You've taken it down to basics, but this was a question of which types of children can they market the most, the most successfully. Yeah.
Okay, Mark, apologies for the wait, but let's finally come to.
I think David's trying to say something there.
Sorry, David, did you want to?
Well, it's just that I've come across exactly the same story in Israel. A lot of the Russian immigrant girls who went into Israel were blonde, and they discovered that it's best not to have a blonde boyfriend, because if there is children, they would be running into problems with the state seizing the children.
Okay. Thank you for that.